We have comments being made by a former Russian colonel and defense ministry spokesman that's raising some eyebrows. Now, of course, Russia is saying that it's strange that he said this and is denying everything that he said, but he is alleging that Russia is sinking sleeper nukes off the coast of America. Now, regardless of how much validity there is to all this, what I want to point out is the idea, and that this is something that I've seen for a long time in my mind happening on a coast. At first, I thought it could be accomplished by just a plane. If a plane was coming in, it was hijacked or anything else, even if it had a bomb on it, it doesn't have to cross into our airspace. It could be miles offshore. Big enough bomb, even if they shoot it down, if it detonates in the ocean, it could cause a tsunami. But this is different. He is literally talking about these bombs that dig themselves in. I guess they would sneak them in somehow, and they would dig in to the seafloor. And when triggered, they would release a tsunami. This is interesting. I mean, looking at what has been going on off the coast of California, where they've been circling out there, and the talk of a submarine with something like this would go right along those lines as well. And it's not always just the Russians. I am a firm believer that this world is a stage. I've looked back through history, through all the wars, all the events, and we have seen how it's been staged, who has been funding both sides of everything that's gone down. We have seen who's behind 9/11, the same hands that pull off these staged events. That, ladies and gentlemen, is who is going to be responsible for anything that happens in this country, and don't you forget it. This world is a stage. This is why they call them theaters of war. And knowing they're priming this whole thing for another event, and they've already got their enemies up on stage to point the finger at, it will be the same hand that always does it. I can guarantee you that. But this weaponry is interesting because you could do a lot with it. If one of these things was buried in a shelf, like say off Japan, and they detonated one, it could cause a massive, massive earthquake and a massive tsunami. And how would people know any different? If something like that was to strike in the right area, dug in, off a coastline somewhere, let's just say Southern California, for instance, it could trigger a massive quake and a tsunami. And when you're looking at an area that they're looking to devastate, realistically, an area, a coastline that has a lot of cities and a lot of people, that Southern California area is the prime target, in my opinion, if you're looking at it militarily. On the East Coast, I mean, you have cities from Key West all the way up into New England, past Boston. I mean, you've got a lot of them. And to me, doing something like this is a way bigger threat. It would be easier for them to pull off. And this is what this guy says. He says that they admit there is no way that Russia can outspend America on defense. So they have to find new ways, and they have to go to extreme lengths to make sure that they come out on top. You have to think about that. Strategies of other countries, but at the same time, you can't lose sight that every major war, when we look back at how the Rothschilds went to France, Germany, funded both sides. And I say it all the time, fast forward to today, they created the boogeyman, that your brave men and women are signing up to go out there and fight. Many people waking up to this more and more on the daily. You see, it's that same hand that was behind the orchestration that brought down those towers and everything else that's happened staged, that's going to be behind the next event in terms of this country. That is my belief. But this technology, the way things are played out, I guess it's an option at this point. But to me, instead of missiles flying or anything penetrating our airspace, something along these lines is stood out to me because of that. Because they could literally just be out in the ocean in international waters, and with a big enough bomb, can send a massive tsunami in any direction. It's a reality. It's something that can happen. Will it happen? Is the question. I guess my thing is this. Is it seems like 90% of the time when these big events pop off in countries, it's the powers within that are responsible. All the staged events you see through France, Germany, how they let this huge staged invasion backed by George Soros come sweeping in with the Pope telling everybody to take them into their homes. George Soros continuing to cause chaos here in this country, funding it, getting larger and larger, dividing the people. That is the war, ladies and gentlemen. It is on you. It is on dividing you. And in the slaughter, I mean, how easy is it just to say it was a bad guy or someone else? But the reality is the whole thing's orchestrated. Nonetheless, I wanted to make folks aware of these comments. You could say the guy's crazy. You could say this. But the fact is, this technology is definitely out there. He also goes on to say that Putin and them have weapons, missiles that can be steered while in the air. And when I think about it, really, I don't see why we don't have that either. But he's saying that the trajectory cannot be calculated because they can basically steer this thing in the air. It's another claim that he's laid out there. So I just want to make folks aware of it. I think, once again, the thing that strikes me the most is the fact that this is... I did a video on this a while back called the Tsunami Bomb off the coast. And you don't have to have a plane in this instance. They could creep up, dig in. And, you know, when you're talking about own governments doing things to their own countries or things of that nature, you don't have to wonder about how did they get so close or how did they get there or anything else. I think that they would leave it set up to maybe look like someone else did it. Okay, but at the same time, it seems to always be the same hand pulling the strings. It's time people see that clearly. But I will leave a link. I will continue to update as I come across more interesting things. This has been Dabu7. Eyes open. And this is Illuminati.